Welcome back inside the Stingray Show, and we are doing a preview of Auburn and Texas A&M. We just finished up with the Auburn side of this matchup, and right there, Kyle Field will be rocking on Saturday as they welcome in the Auburn Tigers, looking for revenge after last year's game. And Texas A&M is coming all into this game off of a bye week, and before that, after a huge program defining win, as Mike Elko said, over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Here is TexAgs on Olin Bucanan to break down this game from the A&M side. Olin, how are things with you in Aggie land?
Oh, they're all right. Stingray, just another another day in paradise here in Bryan College Station.
So, Olin, I do have to ask you, last time we had you on, you talked about battered Aggie syndrome.
Mhm.
After the Notre Dame game, how is that syndrome doing for the fans?
Oh, I think it just raises the level of angst. Uh, if you followed A&M, it's not uncommon for A&M to get big victories.
Yeah.
They've beaten Alabama, they've beaten LSU, Florida. They've had big wins over highly ranked teams. But they have a history of not following up with with great win. They have the one win
Yeah.
and then they kind of face plant. So what the task is on Saturday is you have to go the Aggies, I mean, have to go about the um proving that they're a great team,
Yes.
not that they just had a great night.
So, Olin, if you would briefly, 2 weeks ago, A&M knocked off Notre Dame up there in South Bend. You were there in person. Recap that game for us, please.
Well, it was a great game. It was, wide open, like the score would suggest.
Right.
Um, Notre Dame blocked a punt on A&M's at the end of A&M's first possession,
Right.
and goes out to a 7-0 lead. And got an interception later, and it was uh, 17-10. A&M scored on. Feel bad for the folks. I really don't, but I could feel bad for the folks in Mississippi State when you saw the touchdown that Mario Craver had when he spun through three tacklers and turned a relatively short pass to an 86-yard touchdown. So it's 17-7, and then Notre Dame maintained a 10-point lead for quite a while. A&M got a big stop on a fourth down and rallied and ended up taking the lead at halftime, 28-24.
Right.
Notre Dame scores first in the second half to regain the lead. Uh, Traded field goals. A&M gets a touchdown, and the next thing you know, it's tied with about, I don't know, 5 minutes to go. Notre Dame is on driving. They score a touchdown to go up 40-34. They botched the extra point. The holder dropped the snap.
Yeah.
And so they kind of opened the door and looked great for A&M. There's 3 minutes to go, and Terry Bussey returned the ensuing kickoff for a touchdown. Up holding turned
Yeah.
out to be a turned out to be a blessing in disguise. The Aggies were able to drive down, and on a fourth and goal from the 11, Marcel Reed kind of double pumps and finds his tight end, Nate Bokacher. Everybody knows that name, right? There's a household name. He is in College Station now for an 11-yard touchdown pass with 13 seconds to go. So Notre Dame really doesn't have time to respond. And, had they had a minute, I don't know how that game would have come out because both teams were moving the ball pretty well.
So, Olin, going into the off week, what did you think that A&M needed to work on the most?
I thought the thing they really need to focus on is just their pass defense. They had some busts. Like there was one wheel route that the linebacker I guess he just had a brain lapse and it was Jeremiah Love, and he's wide open. There's nobody with him. I mean, that's the best player on Notre Dame's team. You'd think by accident they'd have somebody on him. Now, look, if a linebacker is charged with covering him downfield, it might be a touchdown anyway because that's a mismatch. But you still want a guy out there, and but and that's not the a bit. Not saying they don't have the ability. It's just it was a mental mistake. So I think they've spent a lot of times working on mental mistakes. Frankly, I think the A&M run defense played pretty well considering that the team they're trying to stop had a veteran offensive line and Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. I thought that they held up pretty decent. I think Notre Dame had one run for over 20 yards. That's an accomplishment in itself. But the defensive, the secondary could have been better.
Yes. So talk about your concern about this big win and then A&M doing what they've done in history, like you talked about, with a face plant and not handling success very well.
Yeah, we're saying all coaches always say you got to overcome adversity. A&M has to overcome prosperity. Uh, just be able to. But I think I think the open date was fortuitous for A&M because they get this chance to reset. Celebrate it, enjoy it, but have plenty of time to reset it. Last year they had a huge win over LSU. LSU was ranked, I don't know, 4 or 5 at the time. I think they're in the top 10 anyway. And then they go play South Carolina and lose, and it starts a losing streak. So, yeah, look, things appear to be different under Mike Elko. Even that had happened last year with Elko. Is his first year, and they lost Le'Veon Moss in that game against South Carolina early. And I think that had something to do with it. They might have lost anyway. But we'll see if they're better equipped. They seem to be.
Right.
Because, quite frankly, before they went up to Notre Dame, they hadn't won a road game against a ranked opponent in like 8 years.
Right.
So they cleared that hurdle. So maybe this is the year that they're going to look at that problem, that tendency to not follow up big victories, and maybe this is the year they will, and they could springboard them onto a big year. Or if they lose to Auburn, you start thinking, well, is it going to be another status quo 8-4 7-5 type of year?
So, if you would recap this game from last year, where Auburn upset and stunned A&M there in overtime.
Yeah, I think A&M. I'm sorry, I think Auburn got up like 21-0. They were taking advantage of some problems in A&M secondary. I remember Cam Coleman catching a long touchdown pass early in the game. And A&M came back and took the lead in the fourth quarter, had the lead and the ball in
Yes.
Auburn at about midfield with about, I don't know, 3-4 minutes to go. And Marcel Reed dropped the snap on a first down, and it ended up being a 6-yard loss. And later he threw a pass that hit a guy or maybe it was earlier, hit a guy in the chest. He dropped it. So you've heard about teams finding ways to lose, and that's what A&M was doing. You drop a snap. They ended up on that series gaining 12 yards, but you started off with a 6-yard loss. So they had to punt, and I guess Auburn had the ball down 3 with about, I don't know, a minute and a half, a little more. And they had a 4th and 2. And Peyton Thorne scrambles for about a 30-yard gain.
Yep.
And nobody, I guess, even thought that Peyton Thorne might run. And they worked their way in and got down around, I think, about the 15 or the 10. And A&M did hold them there, forced the field goal, so that tied it up. And then in overtime, both teams score, and then they got to go, for 2. And Auburn scores, and A&M runs a kind of a trick play where they snap it, and Marcel Reed is out wide, and he comes around, and so they lateral it to him, and he has a guy running back wide open in the end zone and throws it to him, and he dropped it, and A&M lost 40, I think it was 43-41, something like that, or 42-41. Anyway, yeah, when he dropped it, that's the game. So
Yes.
um, they could only blame themselves. They got in a big hole, came back, and that's happened a lot at Auburn. There's been times when they've had what looked like comfortable leads, if not the lead, comfortable leads. And Auburn, I can remember, I couldn't tell you the year right now. It's probably about 4 years ago, and Auburn's able to get hot at the end and take advantage of holes in that A&M secondary, go and pull it out. So when A&M has good years, 2012, 2020, even 2016, when they were ranked number 4 in the first playoff poll, but then Trevor Knight got hurt. Um, it, it's funny. Their good years happen when they beat Auburn, and the disappointing years happen when they don't.
So, Olin, we are up against our final break of the evening. When we come back, we are going to dive into this year's matchup with the Auburn Tigers. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will finish it up right after this. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our A&M guest this evening is our good friend Olin Bucanan from TexAgs Radio. We are doing a preview of Texas A&M and Auburn. And Olin, when you look at this Auburn football team, what is most concerning to you that Auburn can take advantage of Texas A&M?
Well, I don't know that you're going to find better receivers that you're going to face all year.
Right.
Cam Coleman was once committed here, and a lot of Aggies, wish you stuck with that commitment, obviously. And then they got the Singleton guy. I'm thinking there's a third guy. I know one guy's hurt, but then there's a third guy I've noticed, and I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. But he had a nice game. I thought at least some nice plays against Oklahoma. Um, so but especially Singleton and Cam Coleman. Those are some big play receivers. I mentioned Coleman had 2 touchdowns against the Aggies last year. So I think that's the first thing you worry about is A&M does have a tendency. I always say A&M plays good defense about 80 to 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But when they have a bust, it usually means a big play that they're giving up. And they've given up some big plays in the passing game. And when you got a guy like Cam Coleman out there, I think you hold your breath every time the ball goes in his direction.
Okay, let's flip it. Where do you feel like the A&M could have some advantage over the Tigers of Auburn?
Same playing. If you've watched Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver this year, Mario Craver leads the nation in receiving. 473 yards in 3 games. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken on this, he's averaging 22.1 yards a catch. And that leads the nation, or maybe it's 21.2. But anyway, it's one of those. Maybe I'm a little dyslexic, but that leads the nation for receivers with more than 9 catches.
Right.
Right? Yes, he has 20. So those are big play guys. And I was watching Auburn's game against Baylor. I know it was first game of the year, so you don't want to take too much out of that. But Baylor's throwing the ball on them pretty well. And I thought Oklahoma looked like they had some passing success, even, and I'm not even talking about the one that shouldn't have counted.
Right.
Uh, well, gosh, Oklahoma bending the rules, that never happens.
Right.
So, so, but it appears to me. I even watched their game against South Alabama, and I thought South Alabama had some real good moments throwing the ball against them. So I think A&M has an advantage with their receivers against the Auburn secondary, much like Auburn has that edge against the A&M secondary. I think if A&M protects Marcel Reed, I think that A&M can outscore
Right.
Auburn much the way they outscored Notre Dame. I think it's an explosive offense that I do believe that I know that Cobb kid at Auburn is an explosive guy, but I would take A&M's running game um, over Auburn's. Not to be disrespectful of Auburn, but I just think A&M's running game's that good.
Yes.
Um, and but I know Auburn, one of the among the nation's leaders in run defense, leading the SEC in run defense. So maybe they can neutralize what A&M does on the ground. But I think A&M, if if Marcel Reed is protected, I think A&M has the ability to have a really big game against the Auburn secondary.
So, how do you see it playing out between the Aggies and the Auburn Tigers? You guys are trying to get revenge off of last year. You guys really need this for momentum to springboard you guys to continue toward your path of the SEC championship. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I wish I could know that A&M's not going to turn the ball over or do something stupid, right? Get missed field goals. This is the kind of things they do: missed field goals, turnovers, a big penalty that has cost them in the past. Um, but I think, especially at Kyle Field, A&M has advantage. I think they strike me. I know this sounds provincial and homerish, but they strike me as being the better team. And I think A&M, as long as they play a relatively clean game, I think A&M will win that game. And I think it'll be a high scoring game. And I'm kind of thinking of it something like A&M 41, Auburn 31.
Wow. Now
I
that's
think it could be.
impressive.
I think it could be that kind of game because I respect what Auburn can do offensively. I know what A&M can do defensively, and I think both of them have some issues on defense. But I'll say this: um, I've seen DJ Durkin as the defense coordinator here. I've
Yes.
seen Mike Elko as defense coordinator here, and I would give the decided edge to Elko
Yes.
in that matchup. So
Okay.
I would. I don't want to. I hate to come off sounding like I'm a rah rah guy picking A&M, but I'm not going to lie and act like I don't think A&M has the advantage, especially at home, because I do. So I would take A&M to win by 7-10. So I'll say 41-31.
Okay. Now, on Tuesday evening, it was announced all of the 16 teams a common opponent for the next few years until 2029. Give us your thoughts about the draw that Texas A&M received.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I scratched my head over, and I heard it was going to be, is that I knew they were going to for their permanent opponents, as they say. I knew they were going to have Texas. I knew they were going to have LSU. I kind of thought it was going to be Mississippi State as the third one. Maybe Mississippi State didn't want to play at him. I don't know. But they get Missouri. Okay, fine. They used to play Missouri in the Big 12. I get it. They had some nice games. I think the Aggies overall, they understand Texas. And they like playing LSU, and they would have read. I think they really liked. I'm talking about the general fan base. Liked they loved joining the SEC. So I
Yeah.
think they would have been more partial to playing an SEC, a traditional or a long time SEC team um, more so than Missouri. But I'll say that at least selfishly, at least the drive to Columbia from Kansas City or St. Louis is easier than the drive to Starkville from anywhere.
Yes.
Sorry, Stingray.
You're fine, man. You're fine. You're fine.
but 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 you know what? It's the SEC.
Right.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be a challenging schedule, no matter who you play, no matter how it works out. Unless you're Texas and Sankey's helping you in your first 2 years in. But uh, so you look at it and say, hey, in a couple of years, Georgia's coming to Kyle Field, and guys are looking forward to that. I'm saying, why are you looking forward to playing Georgia?
Right.
That's like being in the Titanic and looking forward to taking a dip. Uh, you know, and people say, "Hey, we're going to go to Kentucky for the first time." A&M's been in the league since 2012 and hadn't made that trip to Kentucky. And Lexington's a nice town, so that's something to look forward to. But I guess what I'm saying is, I really didn't have much of a reaction because no matter how the cards are dealt,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a tough hand to win
Yes.
because it's just like it's just the reality of playing the SEC. And I always say, hey, if you wanted it to be easy, just you should have stayed in the Big 12.
That's correct. So, Olin, briefly, we have not asked you this in a while. How is your royalty check from Varsity Blues doing?
It's interesting that you bring that up. I think last week, 2 weeks ago, I got the most recent one, and I'll tell you once again, it was it was four figures with a decimal point. So it was, I think it came in around $12. Those California state tax will kill you.
Yes, absolutely. So, Olin, look, man, this has been an absolute blast. Go and enjoy for all of us covering A&M and Auburn this weekend. And if you would, leave us with your famous catchphrase.
Well, I'm just telling you, I don't mean to be a catchphrase, but hey, for all of us patriots out there, and I know you're one of them, just remember that America starts with A&M.
Amen, man. All right, so gig 'em. Woo.
Kick 'em.
Yep. Good luck this weekend, Olin, and we will catch up with you later on, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Stingray. Always enjoy it.
Me too. All right, so guys, that is going to wrap up a full week of shows right here on the Stingray Show. We have covered a ton of SEC matchups, and we just finished up with the Auburn and Texas A&M one. When we come back on the Monday evening edition of the Stingray Show, we are going to be doing a full recap of week number 5 of college football. Have a wonderful weekend out there, West Alabama, enjoying your college football. Good luck to Alabama against Georgia and the trip over to Athens, Georgia. And we guys will catch you on the Monday evening edition of the Stingray Show. And I am out.